Dave Proctor. I've been following you for a very, very long time. In the world of endurance and extreme kind of challenges, you rank up there as one of the people that have inspired me.
Mm.
And for those of you out there who may not know who Dave is, Dave holds the record, the current record for the fastest run across Canada. But just so everybody's kind of grounded around this, Dave, maybe you could just give us a few stats: total distance, number of days, distance per day, maybe even how many calories you think you burned in a day. Just throw out some
Lots.
stats around this.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Matt. This is fantastic, and the praise goes both ways. I appreciate your kindness and thanks. The praise goes both ways. Stats. Yeah, it happened in 2022, so 3 years ago. I ran across Canada from St. John's to Victoria in 67 days and 10 hours and 27 minutes, breaking Al Howie's record by 5 days. Um, Al Howie's record was 100 kilometers a day. I ran an average of 105.3. Some days more, some days less. Only days less than 105 were due to running out of real estate. That's running into the Port Basque ferry, on getting off Newfoundland and the overnight ferry, and one running into Victoria. So it's very, very consistent effort. Every day was within an hour and 15 minutes of every other day. 105 kilometers of running a day. Uh, Calories, roughly 8 to 9,000 calories of food a day. So it's more of an eating contest than a running contest. You got to be constantly eating out there more so than running. You got to be a better eater than a runner. Went through 12 pairs of shoes. Yeah, it was a really great concerted effort. I couldn't have asked for anything more. I don't think I could do it again. And I'm really excited to see the next person give it a go, because it's life transforming and it's hard as hell.
Yeah. Listen, I became aware of your endeavor when I was training and pursuing a much shorter run. I was running 300 kilometers, roughly a marathon a day from Jasper to Canmore. Now, I'm not an ultra endurance athlete. For me, it was an act of desperation, to be quite honest. I was looking for, a path forward with my mental health, my physical health. But I saw you on your journey, and it was very inspirational. And I just, to be very honest, I can't get my head wrapped around it. You have a documentary out that just came out, and
Mhm.
I watched it, and I can't say how much it moved me. And I think it moved me for two reasons. It moved me because there was so much I connected with. And I'm not saying you ran, I rode, mine's harder, yours is harder. I'm saying I connected with it because I just saw on your face what you're going through. And there are moments in the movie where you're sick. And
Mhm.
I don't know how anybody could get up on those days and do what you did. So, if for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll put the link in, but it's not a movie about running across Canada. It's a movie about the human condition. And it was just, I can't express, like, if anybody's looking for inspiration, not in running, but in life, just watch the documentary. It's incredible. But the question I have is this: why? I have my answers, but why? You took some heat even. Like in the documentary, they talk about you kind of in a negative way, and it just blew me away. But you went out there. You did it with no charitable uh, identified, and I have a lot of respect for you because a lot of people try to, encompass all these things for this amazing kind of like persona. You didn't. You went out there with a very clear mission. The charity stuff will come, but you
Mhm.
were out there with a very clear mission. So what made you go?
Um, I live 4,000 weeks on this planet. So do you, so do most. Hopefully we get there. 4,000 weeks is 78 years, and every week that's lived is one less week. And I wanted to do something that scared the shit out of me that I didn't think I could do. I've always been a runner. I've always enjoyed running. I've gotten better at it throughout the years. It's a craft that I think is a difficult craft because it takes a lot out of a person. I believe it's one of the, outside of maybe cross country skiing, it's one of the harder endurance sports to do, and it beats the living shit out of your body.
Yeah.
It really does, and your soul. And it's so, so, so mental. And so, I've always been drawn to it because it crushes me. But I wanted to get better at it. And I wanted to get better at something, and I wanted to do something that I didn't think I could do. And at least once in my life, um, to be able to surprise myself with achieving something that I don't think I can do. I think that oftentimes we play it pretty safe, and most 99% of my life, I play it safe. And I do the things that I know I'm going to mow my lawn later today. That's not a risky endeavor. I know I'm going to do it pretty reasonably well, and I can pat myself on the back at the end of that. But ultimately, I've come to realize that there's very little um, enjoyment with just playing it safe. Um, and I found myself out there on that real tightrope of that white line or that yellow line on the highway, and um, I found myself out there, and it was a pretty amazing thing. So, at the beginning of all of this, I don't know why it drew me to it, and I just I talked like everybody else did on social media about doing hard things and this, but ultimately, there's something in your gut. There's something that tells you go do this. You're gonna find something, and I ultimately found it out there, and I found closure on the TransCanada Highway.
Wow. I was talking to someone the other day and I did three events. The first was the 300 run. The one that really kind of pushed me to the extent I think you felt was the 13,000 kilometer ride, where I was cycling 8 or 9 hours a day. And I tell people that at some point you are either running away from something or trying to ride or run to something.
Hmm.
It's almost like you're looking for an answer. There's this burning, I called it the shadow or the gray. Like I felt like I needed to find something. There was something inside me that was missing. And midlife transition, I'm not sure what it was, but I was not thriving.
Hmm.
And when I went out and I did these events, I realized that the answer is not always out there. It's inside
Hmm.
you. And what I love about endurance events is it breaks you down. It peels back layers, and
Hmm.
there it is. There's the question, and there's the answer. Did you experience that internal deep dive, like hours on your own, trying to convince yourself, will yourself forward? Did you have those internal dialogues that exposed a bunch of that kind of the darker stuff that you were looking for, the answers to the questions when you're out there?
Yeah, for the most part, and it comes in dribs and drabs, doesn't it? It's never really a prolific one moment answer. And oftentimes, I think that at least I know for me, running into Victoria on day 67, um, it all became abundantly clear. That number one, there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There is no end of the rainbow. In fact, on the final day, I wanted to circle around the Terry Fox Monument and run back because I never wanted this feeling to ever end. I felt as broken as I felt never felt as accomplished and good because and if you read my book or end up watching the movie, you'll understand that there's a dragon in my life, and he's always up there circling around, and there was no dragon on the final day, and that's the only day in my life that there's never been a dragon up in the sky. It's because I was him.
Wow.
Yeah. Self-actualization, and ultimately everything that you see the dragon as being which is powerful and capable and confident and strong and attractive and all the things you've ever wanted to be, it turns out I was him all along. And it wasn't this distance between that dragon up in the sky and myself that, is uncomfortable being great. We are great. We just have to go out and take that for ourselves. So I think that ultimately, you know, I looked in the mirror the next day, um, after, finishing that run, and I was really skinny and I had a big beard, um, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, huh, I'm still insecure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the answers weren't out there. And I had to find that out for myself. That, the answers weren't out there. They were inside. And those voices in my head, that salamander, in my book, um, that's constantly gnawing away you, speaking to you. He'll never shut up, right? He'll always be there, and that's okay now. And there's an acceptance when it comes to that. And so you can't outrun your problems. You are your problems. You can't outrun your history. You are your history. And there has to be a level of acceptance and letting go of certain things in your life. And I think that a lot of people will end up getting there a lot quicker than I did. I had to run 7,159 kilometers to figure that out.
Yeah. That's super cool. So, um, would you describe yourself? You kind of mentioned that salamander. You mentioned anxiety. Would you go as far as saying that you run for your mental health? Like, was this? Did you have a like that shadow feeling? Like when I hit the age of 40, I felt like the playbook I had for life was no longer working. I
Hmm.
felt like, man, my 30s, I was really doing great things, making money, meeting women, living the life I wanted to live. And then it was like the debt came due.
Hmm.
Mentally, physically, I started to kind of have a bit of a crisis, and that led me to my act of desperation, to be honest.
Hmm.
Did you feel anything like that? Like, did you kind of say, I first of all, I run for my mental health, but was there some of that dark stuff that you were going out?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely dark stuff. My ego is bigger than this room. It's a problem. And I believe that this Trans-Canadian run was the summit of my first mountain in my life. And I've, then fallen off a cliff, and am now climbing my second mountain in my life. And my second mountain, I'm now able to see the first mountain for actually what it is. And, you know, boy, I was a selfish prick in my 20s and 30s, and boy, but I'm glad I did it, because I wouldn't be where I am now. And I wouldn't have learned what I've learned without doing that. And so ultimately, yeah, I've taken myself off social media because, man, that's not a safe place for me,
Yeah.
and most people, I think. And so it's a tricky thing. I at that point, I don't know if I was running for mental health. I would probably tell people I was, because it's this probably socially acceptable thing to say.
Hmm.
But I was probably trying to convince myself and others that I was worthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting now, climbing my second climb and looking back and going, huh, and reverting back to kind of Viktor Frankl's quotes in Man's Search for Meaning. He said, while surviving the Holocaust as a Jewish war prisoner and a psychiatrist that had an interesting lens at looking the whole thing, he said, my greatest fear was that I would become abundantly aware that I wasn't worthy of my own level of suffering. And the moment that you feel that you're not worthy of your own level of suffering, you quit. And I had to do something so hard that I couldn't quit in order to find out that I am worthy of almost whatever I put my mind to, something that scares the living shit out of me. Um, and I did that at the top of my first mountain. I'm so grateful for that. And yeah, it's what a life experience. What a
Yeah.
beautiful life experience.
I love the fact that you referenced Viktor Frankl because when I got back from my last event, I just went into this massive deep dive. As a matter of fact, you can see my good friend the Buddha behind me here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we all suffer. I think that's the one thing I've learned even through some of the philosophy I've been reading, that we all suffer, and
Hmm.
it's only when you actually start to understand that everyone around us suffers and you
Hmm.
try to help people instead of focusing on yourself that you'll actually start to break free from your own suffering.
Hmm.
Like you, big ego. I had a big ego. As a matter of fact, I think my collapse started when I started to become insecure. I was losing my swagger. As a
Mm.
20-year old, I was a CEO. I was making some good money, but I felt like, you know what? I'm losing my grip here. I'm no longer that 30-year-old guy. And I think for me, the first event was to prove to the world I still could be that guy.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
part two was an extension of that. And by the time I hit part three, I had some of the realizations you were having. It was like, dude, you need to let go of this ego
Hmm.
because you're killing yourself. It's the longest, slowest suicide I've ever seen, but that's what you're doing here. You're slowly running yourself to this point. And really, are you helping people? Yeah, you've given some money to charities, but are you helping people? And I think this is what Heroes Unleashed is now about. It's like, look, at putting my ego aside, I just want to share my story, talk to people like you because you have some powerful things to say in your book, the documentary, that I think if people listened, they can avoid they can avoid this crisis me and you went through. So I think it's super cool that you do that. Changing the subject, one kind of question. This is going to seem really strange. In the documentary, you mentioned this experience of, when I was running down the highway and you went down the busy roads, like I can't believe some of the footage in the documentary, and it is a must watch. Um, the vehicles were close, they were
Hmm.
close. And then you talked about this experience of your level of discomfort went from maybe 5 6 feet down to like 2 feet, and you became numb to that. And I
Hmm.
remember riding and feeling the big semis pulling me in because they raced by so fast, and the bike would swerve over, and how tense I was at first, and then I slowly got used to it, and it's kind of like a numbing sensation, and I would say the entire experience becomes numbing. So when people ask you, how did you get up every day and do that? I would say to them, it became a shirt, a suit. I put it on every day. It's who I was. For 100 days, I was a guy who cycled 150 kilometers. And that's who I was. I became that identity. What was that like for you when you were going and feeling these vehicles and that the first few days of utter pain? You were sick early on. How did you just, wake up and become normal day for me? I'm going to go and run
Hmm.
107 kilometers today, and the pain's acceptable now. The car's whipping by me, the bad
Hmm.
weather. How did you, how did you adopt to that? Like, how did you kind of settle into that rhythm?
Yeah, I think intentionally. Yeah, it's everything. Everything has to be intention. Um, there's a concept that me and my sports psychologist developed called the vault, and it was, locking yourself within a bank vault. Like, imagine a bank vault with 1 foot solid steel door that you lock, and there's nothing coming in, there's nothing going out, and so. Um, I think the problem is some people seem to think that they can lock themselves into a vault 24/7, or out of a vault 24/7, and you can't. You got to feel. We all feel big feelings, and you have to let that occur, but not during the times that matters that you're doing a thing. And so, whenever I would get out from the vehicle at the place that I finished the day before, as I closed the door on the car, I would imagine this big 1 foot solid steel vault door locking behind me. And I would be in a vault from that point forward until I got in the vehicle at the end of the day, which was typically, 12 and a half to 13 hours later. And, you invite in with you anything that serves you, and you do not allow anything in that does not serve you, in order to achieve that task that day. And I know it sounds really simple and trite, but it's that simple. It's Feelings are just feelings, and pain loves attention.
Yeah.
Um, and don't give it air. Don't give it space. And ultimately, what's coming in with your vault, into your vault? What are you inviting in? What's going to help you achieve your task today? Oftentimes my crew member would say, "Hey, because I broke my foot early in the run. How's your foot?" And I say, "I don't know. I'll let you know at the end of the day when I'm out of the vault, because you don't have access to it." Bravery, being courageous, absolutely. Kindness. Sometimes the most crippling thing I think is fear
Yeah.
of motor vehicles. And I'll be honest with you, if I knew how dangerous that was, I wouldn't have done it, because I got three kids at home. And so the you know the amount of distracted drivers that you and I have both seen on the highways is prolific and is getting worse every year. People can't put away their phones,
Yeah.
and they're constantly getting notifications, and they can't turn away. People are rendered useless when it comes to, they have to know, they have to be involved, and dopamine is the driver. And yeah, I saw it, and I ran into traffic every day, and you have to constantly stay focused, but you can't be afraid, but you probably should be afraid, because you don't roll your ankle, you get run over by a vehicle and you're dead. So the amount of close calls I end up having, but that's something that I had to take into the vault with me, was I'll be okay.
Wow.
I'm one step away from safety, and that's in my control. If I see that vehicle coming, don't get mad at that vehicle, because that's just a wasted energy. Just take two steps into the ditch and you're safe. And then
Yeah.
keep running. If you end up having a close call, stop, scream at the top of your lungs, let that energy out, take 5 seconds, and continue on with your day. And that has to go into your vault as well too. So ultimately, it's the vault. Ask yourself who you want to be on the highway here today, and be that person. At the end of the day, I cried every night.
Wow.
You have to. You have to. And then you lock yourself back in again and you accomplish your task. And then you cry again that night. It's
Yeah.
really, I know it sounds like I'm making it sound simple, but it's a choice, and it's with intention.
Yeah, you're sending shivers up my back because different modalities but same symptoms. When I watched your documentary, I said to Nicole, it sends shivers up my back because the close calls that you referred to, um, there go I, but for the grace of God. I mean, there were moments where it was so close, but I was so numb. I didn't even have the ability to process what just occurred. And
Hmm.
let's add to the equation that now marijuana is frequently used. We have
Hmm.
long-term truck drivers who are probably lacking of sleep. When you do that analysis after the fact, it is quite a terrifying thing, and it is
Hmm.
amazing how numb you become. You become to it. It's the numb. There's pain, but then there's also just the heats and the. I think I cycled through some of the worst forest fires Canada's ever had. I got stuck up in Yellowknife. It takes a lot out of your body. I mean, and I love your analogy of the vault. That's very cool. When you would get up in the morning, for me, I would have to take thinking of the dopamine pathway. I now know that small incremental steps towards a larger goal is the way to create motivation. So I'd get up, and I was so sore, I'd put my feet on the floor and I'd get a little check mark. And then I'd say to my wife, she'd have to dress me because I couldn't bend over, and she'd have to put
Hmm.
socks on, and check mark number two. I'd make my way over to the breakfast nook. I was always in like these little kind of cheap hotels because we were saving money for the charity, and I'd scoop in some nutrition, and I'd have these little kind of incremental movements that I would get closer to the bike. And then
Hmm.
once I was on the bike, it was 5K, 10K, and
Hmm.
I remember the feeling of 25K. Now the body's awake, weather, sun, I'm out, I'm going now. Did you have that process in the morning where you had those little incremental check mark that you leveraged every day to get yourself moving?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that those are, you have to expect that those are going to take place, like. every morning, I remember, I'd wake up and I would clap my hands always, and I would say that you knew this wasn't going to be easy, right? And so the first step was always the worst, right? Getting out of bed, it would take 5 minutes to kind of rotate my body to the side, and oftentimes my crew members would say, "How's this going to work? Like this isn't." But but that's the thing is you got all this broken tissue. So broken out there, but yet ultimately there's so much left to give. It's quite an interesting thing. Or I think oftentimes people in the morning, like if I felt how I felt every morning, I would do nothing. If I let my feelings override, if I trusted that, oh, see, no, I should have, I need rest, I should have a day off, then I would never do anything. But the act of doing, creates confidence. And just that, I know that when I first took my first many steps, it would feel like shards of glass were driving in through my feet and heels and my knees and I just said, okay, count down from 100. And then when I get to 0, it's going to be better than when I started at 100. And it was.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm going to do that again. So I counted down from 100 and down to 0, and it was even better. And so it typically took about 10 kilometers, probably about an hour, in order for my body to feel mine again. But I knew that it would always be that way simply because yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before, it was always routine. I would always feel better an hour after. So what's going to happen today? I'm going to feel better an hour after, right? And so it's a simple routine that you set up, and then you trust in the routine. I think one of the problems is oftentimes, you got a lot of these people who are running cross Canada and whatnot who are kind of new to running and kind of, maybe want to be influencers or trying to get attention or whatever it is. And you think you end up having to, the things you learn by running ultra marathons for decades, is so important in those moments because, um, you get the sense that they feel a certain feeling and they give too much weight to that feeling. And that feeling is just a feeling. That's all it is. And so you could either choose to listen to it or you can choose to look past it and move forward and understand that, wait, if I've been running for the last 15 years, 100-mile races, I know very well that this too shall pass. I know very well that this cloud's gonna drift by and it's gonna be gone in no time. Um, and yeah, I just think it's a series of putting one foot in front of the other, knowing very well that the next step is going to likely be easier than the last.
That, what you said is just, it's mind boggling because, again, I wouldn't say I'm overly spiritual, but I study philosophy. I read a lot of books on Buddhism. And one of the things they teach us is that the mind or the brain projects feelings and emotions, and
Hmm.
they are not permanent. The matter of fact, the one thing the Buddhists say is everything in this world is impermanent. It's going to
Hmm.
change.
Hmm.
Everything results due to causes and conditions. What they say is that if you can not become attached to
Hmm.
that emotion or that feeling because of its impermanence, it will eventually change. And due to other causes and condition, something else will arise.
Hmm.
Permanent. I just love the fact that you say that because it's like this philosophy is like 2,500 years old,
Yeah.
older, and
But
yet
we,
there's a guy that's living it and demonstrating it, and it just blows me away.
but I think that's one of the superpowers when it comes to, endurance sport is you have the opportunity. We all have an opportunity within any given difficult thing to separate ourselves from our feelings. Because ultimately I am me, like I am me and you are you. And what is that? Ultimately, I am me, so I'm the person observing the world in front of me. Um, but then I constantly have these feelings and have these voices in my head, and I have these thoughts and ideas. But if I'm the one witnessing the thoughts and feelings and ideas and sensations in that voice in my head, so I'm the one witnessing that. That's not me. That's not me. And so somebody might say, "Oh, I'm so tired." I'm like, "Oh, you're witnessing yourself being tired, or the words and the feelings and the thoughts. That's not you.
Yeah.
That is not you." And so if we can end up differentiating between those things and us, ultimately, and I get it. I get it. The world wants us to, to rest and to live to fight another day, because it doesn't know that I've got a refrigerator full of food and a soft, comfortable bed and a
Yeah.
furnace in my house. I am more than comfortable and safe. And if it's safety that we're seeking, I get it. 30,000 years ago, we should seek safety. But our lives have evolved past that to finding a lot of comforts that we can go out and do these things that are absolutely phenomenal. And I'll be honest with you, when I finished the run across Canada in 67 days, I could have done it quicker. I could have done more. And I think that every single one of us could. There's no limit to the human potential. I think there's limits to human limitation for sure, but
Yeah.
there's no limit to human potential.
Man, Dave, I'm gonna have to have you on again because we could get into some really cool neuroscience stuff here. You touched on so many. I don't know how much. I mean, you've obviously got the background, but the neuroscience that you're talking about, you mentioned a whole bunch of things there. There's a concept of the three powers: focus, meaning, and action. And the
Mm,
theory is that you focus on something, you apply a meaning to it, and it accelerates or decelerates action. So, for example, I could wake up one day, focus on snow, apply the meaning that it sucks because I have to drive through traffic, and the action is I'm bummed out. Or I could
mhm,
say, it's snowing, I get to go tobogganing today with my kids. Fantastic. Now you're energized and you have a happy day. Both can be true, but within our power was we've chosen to apply a meaning, focus on a meaning that will help us move forward. I believe that when people undertake their own journey, whether it's a 10K run, a weight loss, kicking an addiction, or something crazy like running across Canada, they focus on the wrong thing and they apply those meanings that limit them. I'm sore, I'm tired. You are. We all are. Life wants to beat us up. But what we got to get really good at is using our three powers so that we can focus on the right things, apply a meaning that's going to supercharge our actions so that we can move towards a goal or something that
mhm.
we want to achieve. Did you have any experience with that kind of process when you were out in the run?
Oh, absolutely. Like what did we think this life was going to be? You know, it's funny. It comes down to expectations, I think. And I think the fallacy when it comes to, like, let's face it, we're neighbors to the north of the world economic power for the last 150 years. We have a really skewed view of human existence.
Yes.
And you know, what's that saying again? There's three certainties in life: uncertainty, a tremendous amount of hard work every day for the rest of your life, and pain.
Yeah.
And if you're looking past that, um, if you say, "Hey, I don't want that, I don't accept that," well, then you're going to be a pretty miserable fuck. Sorry, that's just for. And I think that's just it. When sometimes I just went for a run this morning, and yeah, I was pushing, and it was great. And I was like, "Whew, I'm tired." I'm like, "Good, good,"
Yeah.
because ultimately in those moments, I don't know about you, but that's the moment that I feel the most alive. That's when I feel the most that I'm living. When I'm in comfort, hey, there's nothing wrong with feeling a bit of comfort after some discomfort. Sitting in a hammock after a hard bike ride is lovely, and I just think that's fantastic and beautiful. But don't skip the hard bike ride.
Yeah.
And I think that there are certain expectations that we have in this life, that it should be easy, right? We should know to expect what happens next, and that we shouldn't be feeling any type of discomfort whatsoever. And I think those are three losing strategies, because you have to come to understand that every day there's going to be a tremendous amount of hard work, and you're actually going to have to work for your joy, your happiness, and really your dopamine. And so it doesn't come to you. And if it comes to you, run away from that.
Yeah.
Those are drugs. Those are addictions to cell phones. Those are pretty ugly things. But if you go out and have a great lifting session, you go, oh my goodness, I feel so good after this.
Yeah.
Giver. That's something that you want to be approaching.
Yeah, that's cool. So speaking of dopamine, the concept of dopamine plateaus, and I think that, speaks to a lot of these difficult transitions we go through. I ran 10K, so I'm going to run 20K to get that feeling. I run 20K, so I'm going to do an ultra. Next thing you know, you're running across Canada,
Mhm.
setting a record. So it's a great question. The phone, there's drugs, there's destructive behavior. A guy like you is, I would say, probably hardwired to be kind of pushing that limit.
Mhm.
So how do you get your dopamine fix now in a healthy, constructive way? Considering it's probably risen so high.
Mhm.
Running a marathon for you probably doesn't hold the same pop
Mhm.
it used to. So how do you get by now and still feel those rewards?
I notice it. I just notice it. And I feel that like my competitive running years are done. Like I can't do this forever. And I've been doing this for 20 years. And I'm really enjoying helping and assisting my friends on climbing their first mountain now.
Mm.
And so, ultimately I see a lot of these old codgers in our sport that they've been doing this forever and they can't let go of something
Yeah.
because maybe they don't have closure, maybe they didn't find something, maybe they found something but they didn't notice that that was enough, right? Because when is enough enough? Ultimately it's a sport. Ultra endurance sports are events where actually your psychologist doesn't want you to ever feel enough because enough is never enough. And so, for me personally, I'm going through this phase in my life right now where it's mindfulness. It's it's all of John Kabat-Zinn's beautiful work, where you come to understand that the world really isn't what you thought it was, and so there was meaning behind all of that. That trying to become something, and now you're just busy doing something with it. And
So
so it's really sitting with yourself and noticing yourself with those big thoughts and feelings and realizing that ego was in the driver's seat beforehand. Now he's taking a back seat. And now I'm just noticing and helping and supporting people and just having conversations with people, connecting with people in regards to what I've learned in the past and what I'm learning now. And I think a lot of people want to achieve. What's at the end of that rainbow is entirely different for them. But when it comes to the dopamine surges, yeah, it's a struggle. I have a feeling I might be 200 pounds overweight in 5 years, or I don't know. It's I'm sitting beside a whole bowl of fruit. We just came back from the Okanagan. That goes away pretty quickly these days. So it's a lifelong struggle for me. But you cannot achieve anything if you don't notice it and draw enough awareness to it.
that's very cool. I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask you to be have more conversations with me because I think we could get into some real specific. This
Let's
is
do it.
for people who don't know. We weren't even planning this conversation today. I'm blown away by how just amazing some of this stuff is. So, but I'm going to leave you with one question that I struggle with, and most people I work with struggle with this as well. When I ask them what their vision is, they say, "Well, I want to have a really great job. I want to travel. I want to run a marathon. I want to be in shape," and they list off a bunch of checklist items. And
Hmm.
the problem with checklist items is when you get there, you check them off. Now what? So I tell people the vision has to be a reality. It's got to have emotions to it. It's got to have
Mhm.
textures to it. You have to be able to visualize it and rewire your neurons. In conjunction with the vision is the concept of identity. Our greatest motivation is to become the person we want to become.
Mm.
I find, for me, I couldn't tell you what my vision was when I was struggling in the shadows. I couldn't tell you who I was, and it left me flat.
Hmm.
I think my adventures, my journey was about finding that vision and finding that identity. The end of the documentary, I told you when we first started to talk, you left the grenade go off in this room. Like, I went on this incredibly challenging mission, maybe just to get to this point where you're now looking and discovering your vision and this person you're going to become. Do you have that nailed down? Do you have your vision? Do you know who you are and who you want to become? And do you find it's motivating, or are you still looking for that person,
Yeah.
that vision?
Yeah, it's ever since the run across Canada, it's an uncomfortable place because everything that you've ever done in your life and the striving, in order to get somewhere. So I'll be honest with you, I've run a lot of races since, and I've never finished one.
Wow,
Isn't that incredible?
incredible.
And the funny thing is you have to have this incredible drive to do this sport. And if the drive is not there, you're just very, very, very pedestrian.
Yeah,
And but the drive was always there all my life. And at the end of each one of these runs, I'll drop out 6 hours into a 24-hour race or a backyard race. You're running throughout the night, and you just don't really care to continue, because all your friends have gone home. And I regret not stopping when they did and have a beer with them. Um, and it's an interesting place that I find myself because I keep asking myself, did I lose something on the TransCanada Highway? Did I lose a part of myself? And I thought, I think that ultimately I found closure,
mm,
and I don't feel that I have anything left to prove to myself. And it took me that long to find, I had to push myself that hard to prove that I was capable of
yeah,
doing something like this. And now I've proved it. Um, Now what? And that's where I am right now is I don't know what's next, but I'm just really feeling very content with not having to continually prove something to myself. Um, because I know it. I know that I could go to any race and likely win it. I know that. Do I want it? No, because it's just that's been done. And so now what? I don't know. I don't know. And it's an awkward at times, beautiful place because when you drop out of races, people go, "Why are you look fine?" I'm like, "I am fine. I just want to have a beer with my friend." And so I go out for a jog every morning. I love running. I don't think I'll ever not run. Um, I don't know what's next for me. If it's going to be coaching, if it's going to be helping friends, I don't know what's next. But ultimately, I know my years of being a competitive runner are done because I found what I was looking for, and it's a wonderfully beautiful feeling to feel closure on the end of something so prolific.
that's fantastic. I find that you start to focus on getting falling in love with growth rather than an
Mm.
outcome. I could run, I could ride, I could, achieve this, achieve that, and I get to these little mile markers and say, yes, I did it. But now I feel a tremendous amount of satisfaction in feeling myself grow as an individual towards the person I want to become, more
Hmm.
towards the reality I want to create. And I tell people that if you can fall in love with the process of growth rather than an outcome, uh,
Hmm.
running an ultra or riding a Grand Fondo, the person who loves to run will run further than the person who loves the destination. And I think to me, when you speak like that, I get those vibes. Speaking of what's next for Dave, well, I think you should just keep telling this story because
Hmm.
there's a lot of power in your words. And what I want to do maybe next time is I want to bring the neuroscientist
Oh,
Bryce and Tibbetts into the conversation. I think he'd
that'd
like
be
to
so
dive.
fun.
Yeah, he would. I think some of your stories. He's a rock climber, and I'm sure you heard of the guy that scaled El Capitan
Yeah.
unsupported. Arnold, very famous fellow, but it's guys like you and him that we need to kind of probe into because I think there's some answers there that could really help everyone. And I'm not saying that because everybody wants to be an ultra runner, but I think guys like us who do these crazy things have problems.
Hmm.
You called it ego. I had a huge ego. I had mental health issues. I was 300 pounds at one point in my life and drank and smoked. And I think we all have these problems. And just like we attack the bad, we attack the good. We don't just
Yeah.
run. We want to run across Canada. We want to ride across Canada. So
Hmm.
I would love
Hmm.
to have another conversation with you, and this time maybe we'll actually plan it out. But I feel today's conversation was incredible. So thank you
Oh,
very much.
absolutely. Yeah, and I think that, to leave, on one note and kind of leaving and jumping into the next conversation, something that we talked about before the recording was, in my book, there's a quote at the beginning where I quote Thurber, who says, those who, all men before we die should strive to better understand what we're running to and from and why.
Yeah.
And some people are running further and faster to a bigger question, but we're all running to and from something, a past, a desire, an outcome, a fear, a concern, something. And, everybody's run is very unique, but I think that everybody's run is also a human experience. And I think that we can end up learning a lot from one another, where you take little tidbits of, that sounds like a lot like me, or oh, I've never really thought about it that way. And I think that ultimately us being vulnerable in a space like this, instead of a lot of these characters out there and these heroic, like nothing ever hurts me, f them, go punish yourself, all these things. Boy, there's a lot of really beautiful people doing really transformative things. I think of Courtney DeWalter and Pete Kostelnick and on and so forth, who don't really get the light of day when it comes to the attention that they really truly deserve, because they're going and doing things in a way that is transformative and would help the human experience going and dealing with mental health struggles and doing difficult things.
That is the goal of Heroes Unleashed.
Mm.
We are a not for profit. Any money we make through any consulting we do, whether it be with corporations or with individuals, we give it to a charity. This year's charity is Homes for Heroes.
Mm.
Everything else goes into creating content so that we can share it with people. I would love to have conversations with you and some of your friends because I think personally, I'm on your side. Social media is toxic. I find that I'm not a 21-year-old model, and I'm certainly not built like some of these guys you see in the gym. I'm not David Goggins, and I'm not an ex-Navy SEAL. I'm a human being who suffered with both physical and mental health issues, who, if he didn't change his ways, he would have either died of a heart attack or maybe drunk himself to an early grave.
Hmm.
I think that is the human condition that is much more common than somebody who can, you know, scale mountains and, conquer the world because they yell at it. I don't think that works for people. The world
Hmm.
yells back. So I'd love to have more conversations with you, Dave. You're a brave guy for coming on, and like I said, read the book. We'll put some information. Watch the documentary. We'll provide the link to Vimeo. It's an incredible piece of work, not because it celebrates your 100 day or less than 100 day, but your record breaking run across Canada. It celebrates the human spirit. That's what it does. And you showed people, I don't know, for me, it just sent shivers up my back. That's all I can say. Watch it. We'll share the information. Before we sign off, what's one piece of advice you would give people? And I use the word surviving versus thriving. We all survive. You said it earlier. Fridge is full of food. I got a bed to go to tonight. You're surviving. Thriving is when the world is bright. You're motivated, you feel alive. What's one piece of advice you would give to that average Joe sitting out there that gets up every day and goes, yeah, I'm just not feeling it. I'm really stuck right now. What would you tell them?
Yeah, your comforts that you've created in your life are killing you. Yeah, they're slowly killing us. We're living in the middle of a comfort crisis. And comforts used to be linked to survival. Lighting a fire at night 30,000 years ago would help you survive, but that comfort felt good. Um, Now we got a grocery store with 20,000 food items. You didn't need to hunt, gather, grow, or prepare, and you're 200 pounds overweight. It's killing you. So go and seek out discomfort. And that's, I feel, when you start to truly live your life and start to feel that joy that we so desperately seek, that everybody wants, and go push on the side of pain, and you'll be surprised what pushes back.
Very cool. To the human needs we all have variety and growth. And I
Mhm.
think that you just touched on two of them. We all get very comfortable with the other human need, which is consistency.
Mhm.
That's the easy one. Variety is the tricky one. One last question. I know I said the last one. Do you ride bikes?
I do. I would like to get into riding bikes more. Yeah, I've got a road bike that I love getting out on, and yeah, I'm transitioning more to cycling more. It's incredible. It's a lot less pounding on the body, but man, my butt hurts after a while of being on that thing. So I think I need a good bike fit or something.
Yeah, I'll show you some of the butt saving techniques I discovered. But
Mm.
one of the things we're going to investigate is we're going to organize a group ride. I can come up to your neck of the woods. There's
Sweet.
probably better riding. We'll hook it up. We'll take some great video of us having some fun, and maybe we can invite some other people out too and make a day of
Mhm.
it. I'd love to plan that with you, Dave.
Mm.
And
I love
I'm
that.
gonna, I'm gonna I'm gonna stop the recording now. Um, well, before I stop it, we'll sign
Mm.
off. Dave, thank you very much. It has been an incredible experience. You're one of my heroes. I didn't know it until now, but people often ask me, "Well, who's your hero?" Everybody falls. I fall back. I cried when I saw the Terry Fox monument.
Mm.
He did something that so many people can do today or try to do today with none of the fanfare. He went out completely exposed and delivered such an amazing impact. But after watching the documentary, yeah, my you're up there as well because you
Mm.
have a tremendous amount of bravery, not just for doing what you did, but for coming on here and being so open and honest.
Mm.
I got mad respect for you, brother. So thank you very much, and we will have other parts to come of this conversation.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Matt. Mm.
Awesome.